The sun hung low over the village of Niue, its golden rays painting the dusty paths in a soft glow. In a small mud house, its walls cracked and worn, Nika sat on the cold, uneven floor, her thin arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her stomach growled, a sharp, relentless ache that had become her closest companion. Hunger was a shadow that followed her every step, as familiar as the weight of her sorrow. At 22, Nika was still in secondary school, not because her mind was slow. Her teachers often praised her sharpness, but because life had been a cruel, unyielding storm. 5 years ago, her mother had slipped away after a sudden fever, leaving Nika in a world that felt colder than the earth beneath her. Her stepfather, Mr. Okeke, treated her like an intruder in his home. His eyes never softened when they fell on her. His voice carried only disdain, sharp and cutting. To him, she was nothing but a burden, the useless girl child who didn't belong. Her stepsister, Chidima, 2 years older, was a mirror of her father's cruelty, her words like knives that sliced through Neka's spirit, reminding her daily that she was unwanted, a remnant of a mother long gone. That morning, the air in the house was heavy with tension, the kind that made the walls feel like they were closing in. Mr. Okeke's voice shattered the silence like a thunderclap. "Nika," he bellowed, his tone sharp enough to make her heart leap into her throat. "Get in here before I lose my patience." Nika scrambled to her feet, her pulse racing, her bare feet slapping against the cracked floor as she hurried to his room. He stood tall, his broad frame filling the doorway, a worn brown envelope clutched tightly in his calloused hand. "This," he said, thrusting it toward her with a scowl that could curdle milk, "is your school fees. Take it straight to the school and pay it. If you lose this money, Nika, don't even dream of coming back here. I'll deal with you like a common thief, you hear me?" Nika nodded quickly, her fingers trembling as she gripped the envelope, its rough edges digging into her palms. Her heart pounded, a chaotic mix of fear and fleeting hope. School was her sanctuary, her only path to a future beyond the suffocating walls of this house, and this envelope was her lifeline, fragile but precious. "Listen well," Mr. Okeke continued, his eyes narrowing to slits, his voice low and menacing. "Don't start dreaming of university. I don't have money to waste on a foolish girl like you. After secondary school, you'll sell plantain in the market. That's all you're good for, you hear?" The words landed like blows, each one a fresh wound on her already battered spirit. Nika swallowed hard, her throat tight, and whispered, "Yes, sir." Her voice was barely audible, a fragile thread in the heavy air. "Now get out of my sight," he snapped, waving her away like a pesky fly. As she turned to leave, Chidima blocked the doorway, her lips curled into a mocking smirk. "Look at this one," she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. 22 years old and still wearing a school uniform like a child. "Old woman, shame on you." Nika said nothing, her fingers tightening around the envelope as she slipped past, her eyes fixed on the ground to avoid Chidima's piercing gaze. She wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a response, but the words stung, burrowing deep into her heart. The sun was already fierce as Nika stepped onto the dusty village road, the heat pressing against her skin like a heavy blanket. Her worn slippers, thin as paper, let in every sharp pebble, but she barely noticed. Pain was her old friend, as familiar as the hunger gnawing at her insides. She walked with purpose, the envelope tucked safely in her small patched bag, her mind racing with thoughts of school, of escape, of a future that felt so distant, it might as well be a dream. As she approached the rickety wooden bridge near the bustling Niue market, her eyes caught a figure slumped by the roadside. An old man, frail and weary, sat on a smooth stone, his clothes torn and patched, his face etched with lines of sorrow that told a story of loss. His eyes, sunken and tired, met hers, and something in them made her pause, a quiet, unspoken pain that mirrored her own. "Please, my child," he said, his voice low and hoarse, barely carrying over the hum of the market. "I haven't eaten since yesterday. Do you have anything to spare? Even a crumb would do." Neka's heart twisted, a sharp pang of empathy cutting through her. She looked at him, really looked, and saw a man who'd lost everything. His pride, his home, his hope. "I don't have food, Papa," she said softly, her voice trembling with regret. "I'm so sorry." She took a step to move on, but something held her back. An invisible pull deep in her chest, like a voice whispering to her soul. She stopped, turned and studied him again. His shoulders sagged, his hands trembled slightly, and his eyes carried a weight that felt all too familiar. She walked back to him, crouching low so their eyes were level. "Papa, what happened to you?" she asked, her voice gentle, like she was speaking to a wounded child. The old man sighed, his gaze drifting to the horizon, as if searching for a memory long lost. "I was a farmer," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of years. "I had a small plot, a little house, enough to live a quiet life. But one night fire came. It swallowed my crops, my home, everything I had. Now I beg, sleeping under this bridge or in uncompleted buildings. Life has no mercy for me anymore." Neka's eyes filled with tears, her heart aching for the stranger who seemed to carry her own pain. "If I had a home, Papa, I'd let you stay with me," she said, her voice breaking with honesty. "But I don't. I live with my stepfather. My mother died 5 years ago, and life, it's been hard for me too." The old man looked at her, his eyes softening with a kindness that felt like a warm embrace. "What's your name, my child?" he asked. "Neka," she replied, wiping a tear from her cheek with the back of her hand. He smiled faintly, a small spark lighting his weary face. "I'm Obioma. Do you sit here every day?" she asked, her curiosity growing despite her own troubles. "Yes," Obioma said, nodding slowly. "This is my spot by the bridge. Some days people give me food, a few coins. Most days they walk past like I'm not even here, like I'm invisible." Neka's gaze dropped to the bag slung across her shoulder. The envelope inside felt heavier than ever, a weight that pressed against her heart. Mr. Okeke's warning echoed in her mind, sharp and unforgiving. "If you lose this money, you're finished." Her fingers hesitated, then reached for the envelope, her hands trembling with indecision. She pulled out a few naira notes, her mind racing. What can he do with just this? She thought. A few notes won't change his life. He needs real help. Her heart pounded, torn between fear of her stepfather's wrath and the compassion that burned in her chest. She looked into Obioma's eyes, saw the quiet dignity beneath his suffering, and made her choice. Without another thought, she pressed the entire envelope into his trembling hands. "Take it, Papa," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "It's all I have." Obioma opened the envelope, his eyes widening at the stack of naira inside, neatly folded and crisp. "No, my child," he protested, his voice urgent as he tried to push it back toward her. "This is too much. You can't give me this." "No, Papa," Neka said, her tone firm but kind, her eyes locked on his. "It's from my heart to yours. Please, take it." Tears welled in his eyes, spilling down his wrinkled cheeks, carving paths through the dust that clung to his face. "God bless you, Neka," he said, his voice shaking with emotion, raw and unguarded. "May your kindness bring you miracles beyond your dreams, miracles that will lift you higher than you can imagine." Neka managed a faint smile, her chest tight with a mix of fear and peace. "I'll try to bring you food sometimes, even if it's small," she added, her voice soft but sincere. "Thank you, my child," Obioma said, clutching the envelope like it was a treasure from heaven, his hands trembling as he held it close. "Thank you." Neka stood, her legs heavy as she walked away from the bridge, each step feeling like a weight pressing her deeper into the earth. Her chest was tight, her mind a whirlwind of panic and regret. She'd just given away her school fees, her only chance at education, her only hope of breaking free from the chains of her stepfather's cruelty. What would she tell Mr. Okeke? How would she face him? The thought made her stomach churn, but the memory of Obioma's tearful gratitude lingered, a small spark of peace in her soul. She reached the school gate, the familiar iron bars looming before her, but she couldn't bring herself to step inside. Her legs gave way, and she sank beneath a sprawling mango tree, its shade offering little comfort against the storm in her heart. She buried her face in her hands, tears streaming hot and relentless down her cheeks. Her future felt like dust slipping through her fingers, crumbling into nothing. Yet deep in her soul, a strange peace flickered, a quiet assurance that she'd done something good, something right, even if it meant pain. The act of giving had lit a spark in her heart, a whisper that she was more than the useless girl her stepfather called her. The walk back to the compound was slow, her feet dragging through the red earth, kicking up clouds of dust that clung to her worn slippers. The house loomed ahead like a prison, its mud walls a cage she longed to escape. Her steps faltered, her heart urging her to turn and run, to disappear into the horizon. But where could she go? She had no one, nowhere to hide. Mr. Okiki was waiting in the courtyard, his arms crossed, his face a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. "Where's the receipt?" he demanded, his voice cold and sharp, not bothering with a greeting. Neka stood frozen, her lips trembling, her hands empty save for the weight of her fear. I lost the money," she whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile wisp in the heavy air. Silence fell, thick and suffocating, like the calm before a hurricane. Then he erupted, his voice shaking the walls. "You lost it?" he roared, his eyes blazing with a rage that made her flinch. Neka nodded, her body bracing for what she knew would come. "I knew it," he shouted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're giving my hard-earned money to some useless boy, aren't you? You daughter of a foolish woman, parading around like a student while you waste my money." Before she could speak, he grabbed his cane, its worn wood gleaming with menace, and struck her hard across her back. Neka cried out, the pain searing through her like fire, sharp and unrelenting. "You'll not eat for 2 days," he bellowed, striking again, each blow a thunderclap against her skin. "Do you think I pluck money from trees?" The cane fell again and again, her screams echoing through the compound as she crumpled to the ground, her arms shielding her face. When he finally stopped, panting from exertion, he pointed at her, his eyes burning with hatred. "Worse," he said, his voice low and venomous. "You'll go to the forbidden stream and fetch water. I don't care what happens to you there. If you like, don't come back alive." Neka's eyes widened in terror, her breath catching in her throat. "Papa, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling with desperation. "That place is dangerous. People say spirits live there, that no one returns the same." "Shut up," he snapped, his voice a whip that lashed at her courage. "You'll go, or I'll drag you there myself. You must learn your lesson." That night, Neka lay on her thin mat, her stomach empty, her back throbbing with pain that pulsed with every heartbeat. Her heart felt like it had been shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one cutting deeper than the last. But when morning came, she rose, her body weak, but her resolve unbroken. She took a clay pot, its weight heavy in her trembling hands, and set out for the forbidden stream. The villagers whispered of that place, a dark, quiet stretch of water surrounded by twisted trees, where strange creatures were said to lurk, and curses lingered in the air like a fog. Neka's heart pounded as she walked, her eyes scanning the shadows, her ears straining for any sound beyond the rustle of leaves. The stream was eerily still, its surface like a mirror reflecting her fear. She prayed silently, her lips moving with desperate pleas as she bent to fill the pot, her hands shaking so badly that water splashed over the sides. To her surprise, nothing happened. No spirits, no whispers, no danger. She carried the pot back home, the water sloshing with every step, her heart still racing, but her body unharmed. Mr. Okeki was waiting, his eyes narrowing as she entered the compound, the pot balanced on her head. "You came back?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion, as if her survival was an accusation. Neka nodded, setting the pot down with care, her movements slow and deliberate. He shook his head, his lips curling into a sneer. "I knew it. You're a witch. No normal girl survives that stream." Neka said nothing, her silence her only defense. She retreated to her corner of the house, her body aching, her spirit battered but unbroken. The next day, as soon as she could escape the suffocating walls of the house, she ran to the spot by the bridge where Obioma sat. He was there, perched on his usual stone, his face lighting up with a warm smile when he saw her. "My child," he said, his voice thick with concern as he stood. "You look like the world has crushed you." Neka sank beside him, her eyes brimming with tears that spilled freely down her cheeks. "I told my stepfather I lost the money," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with pain. "He didn't believe me. He beat me, called me names, and sent me to the forbidden stream to fetch water. He said I shouldn't come back alive." Obioma's fists clenched, his weathered hands shaking with anger. "What kind of heartless man is this?" he growled, his voice low but fierce, like a lion protecting its cub. "How I wish I had a home, my child. I'd ask you to leave that place and come live with me, far from that monster's cruelty." Neka wiped her tears, her lips trembling as she tried to summon strength. It's okay, Papa, she said, her voice soft but resolute. I just wanted to see you to know you're okay. Obioma's eyes softened, a fatherly warmth radiating from him. Thank you for yesterday, he said, his voice thick with gratitude. That money you gave me, it saved my life. You don't know the miracle you've worked. Neka managed a weak smile, her heart lifting slightly despite the weight of her troubles. You'll marry a wealthy man one day, Obioma said, his tone firm with conviction, his eyes gleaming with hope. A man who will see your heart and cherish you like the treasure you are. Neka blushed, shaking her head. Amen, Papa, she replied, her voice tinged with doubt. But I want to finish school first. He nodded proudly, his smile widening. You're wise, my child, and beautiful too. That stepfather of yours is just jealous because you're finer than his own daughter, Chidima. Neka laughed softly, the sound breaking through her sorrow like a ray of sunlight piercing a storm cloud. That's my girl, Obioma said, grinning. See, I made you smile. This world is full of cruel people, but God always sees those with good hearts. Your life will change, Neka. I believe it with every bone in my body. The words wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket, and for a moment, the weight of her pain felt lighter. She sat there, listening to the soft hum of the market in the distance, the chatter of traders and the clatter of pots mingling with the rustle of leaves. Obioma's presence was a balm, a reminder that kindness still existed in a world that had shown her so little. Papa, how do you stay so strong? She asked, her voice quiet, her eyes searching his face. Obioma sighed, his gaze distant. Life breaks us all, my child, but the pieces we're left with, they can still shine if we let them. You're a shining piece, Neka. Don't ever forget that. Tears welled in her eyes again, but this time they were different. Tears of gratitude, of connection. She nodded, unable to speak, and sat with him in silence, the bond between them stronger than words. The next morning, Mr. Okeke was trudging along a narrow farm path toward his yam plot, his machete slung over his shoulder, whistling a tuneless song as the sun climbed the sky, casting golden light over the palm trees. The air was thick with the scent of earth and dew, the village waking to the rhythm of another day. As he rounded a bend near a cluster of banana trees, a tall man in simple clothes stepped into his path, his posture calm but commanding. Good morning, the man said, his voice steady, his eyes piercing. Mr. Okeke frowned, his mood souring instantly. What do you want? He snapped, gripping his machete tighter. I came to warn you, the man said, his tone unwavering. Leave Neka alone. She's done nothing to you. You're just a bitter man punishing her for your own failures. Mr. Okeke's eyes widened, his face flushing with rage. You dare speak to me like that? He shouted, stepping closer, his voice booming. She's my daughter, and I'll do what I want. The man didn't flinch, his gaze steady as steel. I'm warning you, he said, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. She's protected. If you don't stop, you'll regret it. Mr. Okeke laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed through the trees. Regret? What will you do, you useless man? The man's eyes darkened, his voice a low growl. If you don't stop, you'll disappear forever. With that, he turned and walked away, vanishing into the morning mist like a ghost. Mr. Okeke stood there, shaking with fury, muttering curses under his breath. Useless people, he spat, his pride wounded. He turned and stormed back to the village, his face red with rage, his mind churning with thoughts of vengeance. When he reached the compound, Neka was sweeping the courtyard, her movements slow and weary, her body still aching from the previous day's beating. You! He roared, grabbing his cane from the corner of the house, its wood worn smooth from years of use. You sent men to threaten me, didn't you? You think you can control me now, you foolish girl? Neka froze, the broom falling from her hands, her heart racing. Papa, I didn't. The cane struck her back before she could finish, the pain exploding through her like fire. She cried out, stumbling forward, her hands clutching the ground. Liar! He shouted, striking again, his voice a storm of rage. You shameless girl, sending men to disrespect me. The blows rained down, each one a thunderclap against her skin, her screams echoing through the compound. No one came to help. The neighbors stayed silent, their doors closed. When he finally stopped, panting and sweating, he pointed at her, his eyes burning with hatred. You'll regret this, he spat, his voice dripping with venom. You'll see. Neka could barely move, her body aching, her spirit crushed. She dragged herself to her corner, tears streaming down her face, her heart heavy with despair. How could he believe such lies? How could he hate her so much? She curled up in the darkness, her body trembling, her mind replaying his cruel words. She thought of her mother, her gentle smile, her warm embrace. If only she were alive. If only someone in this world loved her. That evening, when the house was quiet, Neka slipped out and made her way to her mother's grave, a small mound hidden in the bush behind the village. She knelt beside it, her hands trembling as she touched the cold earth, now warmed by the fading sun. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking, "why did you leave me? They hate me. They beat me. They treat me like I'm nothing. I miss you so much. I wish you were here to hold me, to tell me it'll be okay." The wind rustled through the trees, a soft, mournful sound that offered no answers. Nika sobbed, her tears soaking the ground, her heart screaming with pain. The grave was her only refuge, the only place she felt safe. She stayed there for hours, pouring out her sorrow, her prayers a desperate plea for escape, for a miracle. As she trudged back to the compound, her eyes red and swollen, Chidima was sitting outside, filing her nails and chewing gum loudly, her face twisted in disgust. "You, daughter of a ghost," she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "Out chasing men again, eh? Or were you dancing with spirits at that forbidden stream?" Neka wiped her tears, her voice steady despite her pain. "I went to my mother's grave." "Liar," Chidima spat, standing up, her long nails gleaming in the moonlight. "Go to the kitchen. My boyfriend's coming and we want pounded yam with a goosey stew. Hot and fresh, you hear?" Neka sighed, her body screaming with exhaustion. "Chidima, I'm tired. I haven't eaten today." Chidima stepped closer, her finger jabbing at Neka's face. "You have no choice," she hissed. "Or I'll tell Papa to throw you out tonight. Go live with your dead mother in the grave." Neka's heart sank, a heavy weight settling in her chest. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but no words came. She turned and shuffled to the kitchen, her legs weak, her back throbbing from the morning's beating. The pain made her tremble, but she had no choice. If she refused, Chidima would run to Mr. Okeke, and he'd throw her out without mercy. In the kitchen, Neka leaned against the wall, her breath ragged, her eyes stinging with tears. With shaky hands, she picked up a knife and began peeling the yams, each slice a small act of defiance against her despair. Her fingers felt heavy, her arms sore, but she kept going, the rhythm of the knife her only anchor. The fire crackled as she boiled the yams, the smoke stinging her eyes, mixing with her tears. When the yams were soft, she fetched the mortar and pestle, its weight almost too much for her weakened body. She pounded the yam, each thud a painful echo of her broken spirit, her breath coming in short gasps, sweat and tears mingling on her face. By the time the pounded yam and stew were ready, she felt like collapsing, her body exhausted, her soul drained. She was tired. Tired of pain, tired of insults, tired of being treated like trash in a house her mother once called home. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Don't give up, Neka. You're stronger than this. Something good is coming." That voice, faint but persistent, was her lifeline, the only thing keeping her alive. Chidima strutted into the kitchen, her waist swaying like a village queen, her face radiating arrogance. "My boyfriend's almost here," she said, flipping her hair with a flourish. "I'm going to the shop to buy drinks. Serve him the food before I get back. He's hungry, and I don't want any nonsense from you." Neka nodded silently, arranging the food on a tray, her movements mechanical, her heart numb. Chidima hissed loudly and left, humming a love song as she sashayed away. Moments later, a knock came at the door. Neka opened it to find a tall man standing there, dressed in a tight shirt and faded jeans, his eyes scanning her from head to toe with a predatory glint. "Good evening," Neka said quietly, stepping aside to let him in. "Yeah," he replied, his gaze lingering too long. "You are Chidima's sister?" Neka didn't bother explaining, simply gesturing for him to enter. She placed the steaming plate of pounded yam and a goosey stew on the small wooden table and turned to leave, but he stopped her with a sly grin. "Wait," he said, leaning back in the chair, his eyes gleaming. "You're beautiful. Really beautiful." Neka blinked, unease creeping up her spine like a cold shiver. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice flat, her eyes avoiding his. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a suggestive whisper. "I'm serious. You're finer than Chidima. Has anyone ever told you that?" Neka looked away, her discomfort growing, a knot forming in her stomach. Thank you, but I need to go. Don't thank me, he said, licking his lips, his eyes roaming over her. I'm just being honest. If I saw you first, I wouldn't be with Chidima. She's the one forcing herself on me. Be my girlfriend, Neka. I have money. I can take you to the city, change your life. Neka's face hardened, her arms folding across her chest as anger flickered in her chest. Money? She asked, her voice sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Yes, plenty, he said, puffing out his chest with pride. Just say yes, and you'll never suffer again. Neka tilted her head, her eyes narrowing as she took him in. Really? Then why do you look like this? Your shirt looks like it's been through a war. Your hair's a mess like it was combed with a rake. And your shoes? They're screaming louder than you. The man blinked, caught off guard, his confidence crumbling. What? He stammered, his face reddening. Fix yourself before you try to fix me, Neka said, her voice steady, her eyes blazing. You're not even handsome. You look like you lost a fight with sleep and woke up confused. His smile vanished, his face turning scarlet with shame and anger. I was just trying to help a poor village girl like you, he snapped, his pride wounded. Help? Neka laughed softly, her tone cutting like a knife. You want to betray Chidima and think I'm stupid enough to fall for your nonsense because of money? Please. She turned and stormed out of the room, leaving him fuming, his ego shattered into pieces. Chidima was at the shop, browsing bottles of malt, when her phone rang. She smiled, seeing her boyfriend's name on the screen. Hello, baby, she cooed, her voice sweet as honey, but his tone was cold, distant, like a stranger's. Chidima, your sister's a snake, he said, his words sharp and venomous. She tried to seduce me, begged me to leave you, and take her to the city. She even touched me. Chidima's eyes widened, her blood boiling. Neka, that useless girl? She shouted, drawing stares from passers-by. I'm sure, he lied smoothly, his voice dripping with false sincerity. I told her I'm not interested, but she kept begging. I had to leave before I lost my temper. Chidima ended the call, her face red with fury, her heart pounding with rage. She stormed out of the shop, pushing past villagers, her heels kicking up dust as she rushed home, her mind set on vengeance. Bursting into the house, she dropped the drinks on the table with a loud thud and screamed, Papa, Papa, come and hear what this useless girl did. Mr. Okeke emerged from his room, his face already dark with suspicion. What is it now? He asked, his voice heavy with irritation. Your daughter, Neka, tried to steal my boyfriend. Chidima shouted, her voice shaking the walls, her hands flailing with anger. She told him I'm not good enough, begged him to take her to the city. Can you imagine that dirty village rat? Mr. Okeke's eyes widened, his rage erupting like a volcano. She did what? He roared, his voice a thunderclap that made Neka flinch as she stepped out of the kitchen, her heart racing. Papa, I didn't. Before she could finish, his hand flew, a heavy slap landing on her cheek, sending her staggering back. Shut up, you shameless child, he bellowed, his eyes blazing with hatred. Seducing your sister's man? How low can you go? I swear, he lied. Neka cried, tears streaming down her face, her hand clutching her burning cheek. He was the one. Another slap silenced her, the force knocking her to the ground. You're lying, Mr. Okeke barked, towering over her. You think I'll believe a cheap girl like you over a man? You're cursed, just like your rotten mother. Neka's heart shattered, her body trembling as she lay there, her tears soaking the earth. She looked up at Chidima, hoping for a shred of mercy, but Chidima only smirked, her arms folded in triumph, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You'll not eat for 2 days, Mr. Okeke declared, pointing at her with a shaking finger. And if I catch you near any man, even a madman, I'll strip you naked and throw you out myself. Neka rose slowly, her tears falling silently as she retreated to the kitchen. She sank to the floor, hugging her knees, her body shaking with sorrow and anger. How could they believe such a lie? How could they hate her so much? She thought of her mother, her gentle smile, her warm embrace. If only she were alive. If only someone in this world loved her. The next day, Neka left the house early, her stomach empty, her spirit weaker than ever. Her body ached from the beatings, but her heart was heavier, a weight that threatened to crush her. She dragged herself to Obioma's spot by the bridge, where he sat whistling softly, his walking stick resting beside him. The moment he saw her, he stood, his face creasing with worry. My child, come here, he said, his voice warm and fatherly. You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. Neka dropped her bag and sat beside him, her eyes red, her lips dry. Papa, she said quietly, her voice trembling, I'm tired. So tired. My stepfather beat me again last night for something I didn't do. He said I seduced Chidima's boyfriend, but it's a lie. I feel like giving up. Obioma's face hardened, his eyes flashing with anger. That man, he said, clapping his hands once, his voice sharp. God will send his angels to flog him without mercy. Neka looked at him, surprised, and a small laugh escaped her lips, breaking through her tears. Papa, you're so funny. He grinned, his eyes twinkling with mischief. I may be old, but I don't joke about wicked people. They'll flog him so hard, he'll cry like a baby, rolling in the dust, begging for mercy, but even his shadow will run away. Neka covered her mouth, laughing through her tears, the sound a fleeting moment of light in her darkness. Papa, you're too much. He smiled, then leaned closer, his voice softening. My child, I have something to tell you. What is it, Papa? She asked, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. A good Samaritan has helped me, he said, his face brightening with a spark of hope. Someone saw me here and gave me a job as a gateman in Enugu. Not only that, they gave me a small house to stay in. Neka's eyes widened, a spark of joy breaking through her sorrow. Really, Papa? That's wonderful. Yes, he said, nodding, his smile wide. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Neka, come with me. Her smile faded, her heart sinking like a stone. Papa, I can't, she said, her voice heavy with regret. If I leave now, they'll say I ran off with a man. They'll never let me return. Obioma nodded slowly, his eyes filled with understanding. I see, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. This is the address of where I'll be staying. Keep it safe. Don't let them see it. If anything happens, or if you change your mind, come to me. My house is your house. Neka took the paper, her hands trembling as she clutched it tightly. Thank you, Papa, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'll miss you. You're the only real family I have now. Obioma wiped her tears gently with his thumb, his touch warm and comforting. Don't cry, my child. You're strong. And remember, God is watching. You won't suffer forever. She nodded, standing. Let me buy you food before I go, she said, her voice soft but resolute. Thank you, my daughter, he replied, his smile radiant. Neka returned with a hot plate of rice and stew, the steam rising in fragrant curls. They sat together, eating in companionable silence, the simple meal a moment of peace in her turbulent world. As she left, Obioma pulled out a small phone from his pocket and dialed a number. Do it, he said, his voice low and commanding. Make him regret it. He hung up, tucking the phone away, his face unreadable. Back in the village, Mr. Okeke was heading to his farm, his machete slung over his shoulder, muttering about Neka's uselessness. As he passed under a massive Iroko tree near the village shrine, something strange happened. 3 masquerades leaped from the bushes, their canes whistling through the air like vengeful spirits. They flogged him mercilessly, left, right, center, their movements swift and silent. He screamed, "Who are you? What did I do?" But they didn't speak, only struck harder, their canes biting into his flesh. He tried to run, stumbling into the mud, crawling like a wounded animal, his cries echoing through the trees. When they vanished into the bush, Mr. Okeke stood, covered in dust, his pride shattered, his body bruised. He limped back to the village, sobbing like a child, his machete forgotten in the dirt. His friend Chukwuma saw him under a mango tree, his eyes wide with shock. Okeke, what happened? Masquerades. Mr. Okeke gasped, his voice trembling. They beat me for nothing. Chukwuma laughed, clutching his stomach. Serves you right. Maybe it's Neka's mother's ghost. Leave that girl alone or next time they'll use iron. Mr. Okeke cursed, his face burning with shame, and stumbled home, collapsing outside the compound, sobbing. Neka's mother, leave me alone. 2 days later, the house was quiet, the air heavy with tension. Neka had finished sweeping the courtyard, her body weak from hunger, her spirit clinging to the faint hope that had kept her going. As she entered the house to rest, Mr. Okeke followed, locking the door behind him with a click that sent a chill down her spine. She turned, her stomach twisting at the look in his eyes, cold, calculating, and cruel. What is it, Papa? She asked, her voice shaky, her hands trembling at her sides. He leaned against the wall, a sinister smile curling his lips, his eyes glinting with malice. So your mother's ghost sent those masquerades to flog me, eh? he said, laughing bitterly, the sound grating against her nerves. Fine, I won't beat you anymore. But I'll punish you another way. I'll get you pregnant, then throw you out. You'll be a useless single mother, begging on the streets. No one will want you. Nika froze, her blood running cold, her heart pounding in her chest. What did you say? She whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and rage. He stepped closer, his breath hot and foul. Don't shout. No one will hear you. You're nothing. Let me destroy you once and for all. As he reached for her, something snapped inside Nika. A fire, buried deep under years of pain, silence, and suffering, roared to life, fierce and unstoppable. Without thinking, she balled her fist and punched him hard in the face, her knuckles cracking against his jaw. Mr. Okeke screamed, stumbling backward and crashing to the floor, his hands clutching his face. Help, she's killing me, he wailed, his voice high with pain and shock. Nika didn't wait. She grabbed her bag, the paper with Obioma's address tucked inside, and ran, her heart pounding with the raw power of freedom. She sprinted through the village, past the market, her feet pounding the dusty paths, straight to the motor park. She boarded a bus to Enugu, the engines roar a hymn of liberation. As the vehicle lurched forward, tears streamed down her cheeks, not tears of pain but of strength, of defiance. I'm free, she whispered, her voice steady, her heart soaring for the first time in years. Back at the compound, Mr. Okeke rolled on the ground, clutching his face, wailing like a child. She punched me. She almost killed me. Chidima rushed in, her eyes wide with shock. What happened? Nika and her men beat me, he lied, his voice trembling with false anguish. She's possessed. She wants to destroy me. Chidima fumed, her hands shaking with anger. We must report her to the king. No, Mr. Okeke said, his voice venomous, his eyes burning with hatred. It's not important. Reporting her won't change anything. Chidima frowned, confused. So, what do we do? He looked around, his face twisted with malice. If that girl ever steps foot in this house again, I'll unalive her, I swear on whatever is left of my life. Chidima gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Papa, no. I don't care, he shouted, his voice shaking with rage. She's brought shame to me, to this house. If she comes back, that will be the end of her. Chidima stared at her father, her heart pounding, truly afraid of the man he had become. In Enugu, the bus dropped Nika at a bustling park, the city's noise and lights overwhelming her senses. The air was thick, with the smell of roasted corn and exhaust, the streets alive with fast-moving cars and people rushing by. She clutched Obioma's address, her hands trembling as she asked a passerby for directions. After a long walk, she reached a small but neat compound, its gate painted a faded green. She knocked, her heart in her throat. Obioma opened the door, his face lighting up like a lantern in the dark. My child, he cried, pulling her into a warm, fatherly hug that melted the ice around her heart. You came. Nika burst into tears, her body shaking as she told him everything. Mr. Okeke's cruelty, the beatings, the forbidden stream, the false accusations. He held her close, his arms strong and comforting. No more, my child, he said, his voice firm. You're safe now. Nobody will ever hurt you again. He led her inside to a small clean room, the ceiling fan humming softly, a cool breeze drifting through the open window. This is your home now, he said, his smile warm and genuine. Nika looked around, her eyes glistening with tears of relief. Thank you, Papa, she whispered, her voice breaking. Thank you for saving me. Nika sat alone in the room, folding her few belongings into a drawer Obioma had given her. The peace was almost foreign, the quiet a stark contrast to the chaos of her old life. The fan's gentle hum and the soft breeze through the window felt like a dream. Suddenly the door flew open, and a tall, handsome man stepped inside, his presence filling the room. His clean haircut, expensive cologne, and stylish shirt screamed wealth, but his frown was sharp, his eyes cold. What are you doing here? He demanded, his voice cutting like a blade. Nika stood, her heart racing, but she kept her voice steady. Good afternoon, sir, she said softly. My father, Obioma, isn't here. He went out. The man laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Your father? The gateman? So, the poor gateman I employed now has a total stranger living in my house without my permission. Wow. Nika's heart skipped, but she held her ground. Sir, I'm not a stranger. I'm his daughter. Shut up, he snapped, his eyes flashing. Do I look like your mate? This is my house, and your so-called father has no right to bring strangers here. When he returns, tell him I want to see him immediately. He must explain why he left his post and turned my house into a village guest room. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. Don't touch anything, he said without looking back. I'm watching you. He slammed the door, the sound echoing in the small room. Neka sat on the bed, her hands cold, her heart pounding. What kind of man is this? She whispered, her voice trembling. So rude, but so handsome. Is this how city men behave? So arrogant, so bitter. Maybe his girlfriend broke his heart. Or maybe someone stole his phone. But why pour all that anger on me? She lay back, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. How can someone look so good, smell so rich, dress so fine, and still have a heart like a stone? Whatever. Let Papa come back and explain. I'm not going anywhere. She sighed deeply, her body sinking into the soft mattress. If this is city life, it's already full of drama. But I didn't come here to fight. I came for peace. I just hope this man isn't my next problem. Obioma returned just before sunset, his face weary but brightening when he saw Neka waiting near the gate. My daughter, he said warmly, his arms opening wide. Are you okay? Neka took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she recounted the encounter with the rude, handsome man. He called me a stranger, Papa. He was so angry, said you had no right to bring me here. Obioma frowned, his brow furrowing. That's strange. Let me talk to my boss, Kelechi. There must be a misunderstanding. He walked off toward the main house, his steps purposeful, leaving Neka in the small room, her nerves fraying as she waited. In the spacious sitting room of the main house, Kelechi, the young man from earlier, sat sipping a cold bottle of water, his sharp eyes glinting in the dim light. Obioma entered, bowing slightly. Good evening, sir, he said respectfully. I came to speak about my daughter. Kelechi slammed the bottle on the table, the sound sharp and jarring. Your daughter? He scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. So the gateman I hired is now bringing strangers into my house and calling them family. Who knows what else you've been hiding? Maybe you've been stealing from me too. Obioma's eyes widened, his face a mask of shock. Stealing? Sir? I've never stolen a thing in my life. I came to talk about my daughter, not to be insulted. Kelechi stood, his anger flaring. I'll have you arrested, he shouted, his voice booming. You're a thief and a liar. Neka burst into the room, her eyes blazing with fury. You must be stupid to think I'll let you scare me, she shouted, standing tall, her voice ringing with defiance. How dare you insult my father and lie about him? Call the police. You think you're the only powerful person in this city? Let me tell you, I know wealthy people too. If you touch my father, I'll deal with you in ways you've never seen. Try me. Kelechi blinked, stunned by her fire. Then, to her shock, he burst into laughter, a deep, rolling sound that filled the room. Obioma joined in, chuckling softly. Neka looked between them, confusion replacing her anger. What's so funny? She demanded, her hands on her hips. Obioma wiped his eyes, still laughing. My daughter, meet Kelechi, my son. Neka's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Your son? Papa, this is no time for jokes. I'm not joking, Obioma said, his voice warm and steady. Kelechi is my son, my only child, the owner of this house. Kelechi stepped forward, a small smile softening his sharp features. I've heard so much about you, Neka, he said, his voice now gentle, almost tender. Neka turned to Obioma, her mind reeling. What's going on, Papa? Obioma sat down, his expression soft but serious. My daughter, months ago, Kelechi was to marry a beautiful city girl, but she left him for another man, no reason given, just heartbreak. It broke him. He lost faith in love, in women. I begged him to believe there are still good girls out there, but he wouldn't listen. So I made a plan. I disguised myself as a beggar, left this house, and went to find a girl with a heart of gold. That's when I found you, Neka. You gave your school fees to a hungry man, took beatings and insults, and still remained kind. You're the best woman for my son. You're pure gold, and I love you for it. Neka's eyes filled with tears, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't name. She stood frozen, the weight of his words sinking in, reshaping her world. Kelechi stepped closer, his eyes soft now, and knelt on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Neka's breath caught, her hands trembling. Neka, he said, his voice low and earnest, I love you. From the moment I saw you, something in my heart moved, but it was more than that. I heard you talking with Papa on the phone, your laughter, your tears, your strength. I didn't know you, but I felt you. You're not just beautiful, you have a heart of gold. Marry me, Neka. Let me love you, protect you. Neka's mouth trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice shaking. Kelechi looked into her eyes, his gaze unwavering. Say yes, she smiled through her tears, her heart bursting. I love you too, she said softly. Yes. Kelechi stood, pulling her into a tight embrace, his warmth enveloping her. You're so damn beautiful, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. You're an angel. Neka rested her head on his chest, a smile breaking through her tears. And you're my answered prayer. Obioma clapped his hands, his voice booming with joy. Yes, love is sweet. Somebody bring wine. Let's celebrate. They laughed together, the room filled with warmth, and for the first time in her life, Neka felt safe, cherished, and truly loved. 2 weeks later, the city of Enugu buzzed with excitement for the wedding of Neka and Kelechi, a day that would be remembered for years. The hall was a vision of white and gold, with curtains cascading like waterfalls, flowers filling the air with sweet perfume, and love songs floating through the loudspeakers. Guests arrived in dazzling attire, their voices a chorus of joy, while paparazzi snapped photos, their cameras flashing like stars. Neka looked like an angel, her white gown shimmering, her smile radiant enough to light the room. As she walked down the aisle, arm in arm with Obioma, the crowd stood in awe, their whispers of admiration filling the air. Kelechi waited at the altar, his sharp black suit accentuating his broad shoulders, his smile that of a man who'd found paradise. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, he whispered as she reached him. And you're my miracle, she replied, her voice soft, her eyes shining. They exchanged vows, their promises of eternal love ringing with sincerity, and slipped rings onto each other's fingers, sealing their bond. The crowd erupted in cheers as Kelechi lifted Neka and kissed her, the hall exploding with applause. Obioma wiped tears of joy from his eyes, his heart full. Neka had found peace, love, and family at last. Far away in Nui, Mr. Okeke sat on a wooden bench outside his house, staring at the dusty ground, his eyes burning with fury. News had reached him that Neka, the girl he'd called useless, had married a billionaire in Enugu. No, he screamed, leaping to his feet, his voice shaking with rage. This cannot happen. That girl must join her dead mother. Chidima, now a few weeks pregnant, sat nearby, chewing roasted corn, her face pale. Papa, she said, her voice trembling. I never liked Neka, but wishing her death is too much. Shut up, you fool, he barked, pointing at her. Look at you, pregnant with no husband. When will your own wedding happen? You were supposed to marry that boy from the next village, but you chased sugar daddies, painting your nails and swinging your waist like a peacock. Now see your shame. Chidima looked down, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Mr. Okeke paced, his voice rising. She stole your glory. That marriage was meant for you. He grabbed his cap, tying it tightly on his head. Where are you going, Papa? Chidima asked, fear creeping into her voice. To the native doctor's shrine, he growled. This time she'll see. Her husband will hate her. She'll be thrown out like a dog and crawl back here begging. Papa, no, Chidima pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. It's not that serious. Keep quiet, he shouted. You foolish daughter of a foolish mother. Sit there and eat your corn in shame. He stormed off, heading for the thick forest path where the village's most feared native doctor lived, his heart consumed by evil intent. Villagers watched from their windows, whispering. That's Neka's stepfather, one said. He's going to the shrine, another murmured. He can't stand that she's now a billionaire's wife. No one stopped him, for evil often destroys itself. As Mr. Okeke marched deeper into the forest, his eyes red with rage, muttering, Neka must suffer. She cannot enjoy life while I rot here. The sky darkened suddenly. The wind howled, leaves swirling like a warning. A deafening thunderclap shook the earth, and a bolt of lightning struck a tree nearby, sending him sprawling. He scrambled to his feet, screaming, but another bolt came, hitting him square in the chest. With a final cry, he fell, lifeless, his wickedness consumed by the heavens. Back in the village, Chidima sat eating a mango when a boy ran up, breathless. Chidima, your father's dead. Thunder struck him near the shrine. The mango fell from her hands as she ran inside, collapsing in tears. Papa, why? Your wickedness was too much. Why did you hate her so? Villagers gathered, shaking their heads. Evil never wins, an old woman said, her voice heavy with wisdom. In Inugu, Neka was cooking jollof rice in the kitchen, the aroma filling the air, when Obioma entered, grinning. "My daughter," he called, removing his slippers. "Have you heard?" Neka turned, curious. "Your stepfather's gone. Thunder gave him a hot slap and sent him to meet your mother." Neka laughed, shaking her head. "Papa, you're too funny." "No joke," he said, chuckling. "That's what happens when you fight God's child." He paused, his smile softening. "But I have a confession." Neka raised an eyebrow. "What, Papa?" "I sent that man to warn him," he said. "And those masquerades? I arranged them too. I couldn't stand him hurting you." Neka burst into laughter, her heart light. "Papa, you're something else." She grew quiet, her hand resting on her stomach. "Papa, I'm pregnant." His eyes widened. "Are you serious?" She nodded, smiling. "I told Kalichi yesterday." Obioma jumped up, dancing with joy. "I'm gonna be a grandfather." "Thank you, Jesus." Neka laughed, clapping as he danced. 9 months later, Neka gave birth to a beautiful girl with her mother's kind eyes and Kalechi's charming smile. They named her Joy, for she was their greatest gift. Kalechi kissed Neka's forehead. "Thank you, my queen." Obioma held the baby, his voice soft. "My grandbaby, you're more beautiful than the stars." The house was filled with love, laughter, and the sweet sound of family. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take from this tale? Share your thoughts below, give us a thumbs up, share with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications for more stories like this. Stay blessed.